So, on today's show, we have a woman who inspires me with her passion for creativity, self-expression, and in the way she puts herself out there to help others know it's okay to do the same. She's a woman of many talents and passions. She's a founder of a community space, the Sisterhood Collective. She runs retreats in Ireland and abroad, hosts yoga workshops, art workshops, and I'm delighted to say we're running a creative retreat together in Clare very soon. So I'm so happy to welcome to today's podcast Anna Flynn. Welcome,
Oh,
Anna.
thanks, Saoirse. I nearly welled up with that introduction.
Oh,
Sound
well,
amazing.
it came from the heart. I didn't do a full background check because I was like, I'll probably find so many more things and write like a whole Wikipedia on things you've done. But that was just I suppose from the outside looking in and from us knowing each other, a big part of it comes from creative expression. So I'd love to hear a bit about your journey with using creative expression to, express your feelings, and just how you got into, yeah, the creative process.
Yeah, of course. My journey starts quite young. I was always a really expressive child with color and my outfits. I used to change my outfit like four times a day and wear like colorful socks up to my knees and or like to my shins and was so bold and adventurous with my style and my fashion. And like I remember I used to like paint the backs of my friends' phones for them with nail varnish and like do these all funky designs. And I was just super comfortable with expression. I had no reason not to be. And I was also making lots of movies with my friends and directing and starring in them just for fun and stupid movies and stuff. And then when I went to secondary school, for whatever reason, it was a new environment. There was only one girl from my primary school that went to the same secondary school. I just shut down parts of myself, like these beautiful, creative, young, um, innocent, fun, and playful parts of myself in order to be accepted by my environment. It was a very like elitist academic private school, and I just um wanted to be accepted by my community and my new peers, and I didn't think that who I was good enough. And I found secondary school really, really difficult, and I part of that is because I couldn't be my full self, and I didn't think that who I was good enough or that I belonged. I didn't feel any sense of belonging. And then I was, having said that, really, really lucky with the art teacher I had in that school. She's like the best in the country and works for the Department of Education and everything. And art class became my like favorite place in the world where like I would just escape into a different portal and dimension and time would stop and I just got to be completely present and completely at peace and get my creativity channeled in a way that I had never got guidance with before, and it was so nice having her as a mentor. She was such a big influence in my life. And I did art for the Leaving Cert, and um, I really wanted to go to NCAD, the National College of Art and Design. Ever since I think I was in TY, I was going to the open days and refused to go to any other open day for any other college. But no one around me was going in my school. Everyone was going to study business or medicine or law, and I was like the only person that wanted to go to our college. And I felt unsafe to be who I truly was and to express myself. And I remember going into NCAD to do my portfolio course that I was doing actually with one other girl in my school who'd come in late, and she was such a good friend. She was really into poetry, she was really into art, and I had a really beautiful bond with her. But I basically got cold feet when I was doing the portfolio course because there was all these kids with like blue hair, smoking joints and wearing all these funky clothes. And I was like this straight edge, like kid from this private school that I'd put all these like masks up around. And really they were a sign of my true nature, who I was so afraid to be and let out of the box. Scared I wouldn't know who I was scared of the freedom I'd get if I had it. And I've since dyed my hair blue and all the rest. So I'm like, it's funny how things come full circle, and what we judge other people for is what we feel shame for. Like if you're judging anyone, it's just a projection of internalized shame and an area you feel embarrassed about within you or whatever, and can be a really big indicator of what you need to work on within yourself and what you need to love more about yourself and accept. And jealousy is as well as another one. Anything we feel jealous of another person. Like for so long, I felt jealous of people that were pursuing art or creative careers because that's what I wanted to do always. But I listened to society, I listened to the pressures, I listened to my parents, I listened to every external force rather than referencing like my internal guidance system, which was always pulling me towards creativity and art and what I really wanted to do and who I really wanted to be. And then I guess repressed so much, so many parts of myself that, when I got to college, I went and studied Spanish and sociology in Trinity College, and I chose that path, and it wasn't. I hated first year of college. I was like, what am I doing here? I don't belong again. I feel no sense of belonging. And I went to an art class in the art society once, and I remember feeling like I have this sense of like belonging and peace in this environment, and um I was still so afraid to pursue it. I came from like a very big sport family. My family are all really into sport, and that's the thing that made me feel safe playing sport. And art and creativity always made me feel a little bit, I don't know if the word is unsafe, but just that it was not safe to be who I truly was. And I needed to keep pursuing, um, my athletic ability was always praised and praised and praised, and I received so much validation from being a good hockey player or a gymnast when I was younger, and no real like I did receive certain amounts of praise for my art, but it wasn't the mold that I was fitting into within my family and being like continually like we love you because of this, it's that kind of dynamic. So it was really hard for me to validate myself that this is who I actually am. And I chose to give up sport. And that was really difficult because, sorry, hopefully I don't get any more notifications. I found it really hard to give up a part of me that, yeah, like teachers, classmates, everyone had saw me as this girl that was captain of the hockey team in sixth year in school. And like, it wasn't, I hated hockey my whole life. I just continued to do it because I was um, praised for it, and thought that was the reason why people loved me. And we will, go to the ends of the earth to receive love from our loved ones and feel a sense of belonging for our community. And that's why it can be so difficult to step out and do something different and be like, this is who I truly am, and this is me, and I'm willing to be rejected for it. And that's so hard for so many people, and it is hard and it's difficult. But I I ended up having um I transferred to DCU the next year because I dropped out of that course, really didn't like it, felt really disillusioned. And then I ended up studying marketing, innovation, and technology in Dublin City University. And I ended up having a complete breakdown, and I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And I still to this day believe that it was just me repressing so much. I had other, trauma from my past, and mainly sexual trauma that I was repressing and didn't know how to deal with or talk to, but also repressing my true self, my core self. And I feel grateful for the breakdown because I got help, I got access to the most vulnerable parts of me that wanted to express themselves and needed help and attention. And then I also found a beautiful therapist who began to work with me with my creative expression. And um, I remember I went to see her before I started, before I had the official breakdown, and she asked, could she see my poetry? And that was the first time in my life. I've always written poetry. It helps me process my emotions. It just like blurts out of me. I don't have any process with it. Sometimes when I'm more emotional or vulnerable, it comes out and it just flows out of me. And it's not something I think about at all. It's just like pure flow. And it's really vulnerable to share my poetry because it is the most vulnerable parts of me. And there's some poems that will never grace the face of the internet or anyone else's eyes, but maybe they will someday. But she asked, could she see my book, my poetry book that I'd made, and I remember I had a breakdown and disappeared off the face of the earth for a while. But when I came back, months and months, a year later, even perhaps, I wanted to go back to her because I thought this is the first person in my life that's seeing me and asked about the real me. And she talked about my creativity and she gave me the time of day. And she actually is interested in me and who I am and what I have to say and share and express. So we worked through a bit of my poetry together and then also art. She could see how much I was loved it and how much, like, I remember she just asked me one day, what would it feel like if you were just went to NCAD and you were walking around the grounds, and I just his burst out crying, hysterically crying, and I was just like, that was all I wanted to do, and I didn't have the courage to do it. That's all it was. I didn't have the courage. And then she helped me kind of guide me towards applying for my portfolio for NCAD. Um, but I was also working a lot with just, I took kind of a year out after I eventually graduated from DCU. And I was minding kids. I was doing my yoga teacher training and I had a lot of time on my hands to paint. And I was painting so much. I was painting all the time. I couldn't stop painting and I was trying to um, process stuff. And she asked me to do a painting for her, my therapist, about my mental health journey. And um, the first painting I did was this kind of I did three different paintings. Actually, she asked me to do a self-portrait, which at the time, I painted my numbness. I realized like it could have been now, it would be like flowers and sunshines and rainbows and everything. But at the time, it was just a picture of my face with no expression and a rose. And I realized how numb I was and how numb I'd become. And only on reflection, we kind of realized that, a year later in therapy, like that I just painted numbness. And I was so afraid to express myself, especially after my bipolar diagnosis, which is, highly stigmatized for the manic episode, but like part of bipolar generally is heightened creativity. And I was so afraid to express a sign of my mental illness through a rainbow emoji or a love heart that was out of place on Instagram because my friends rejected me and they all unfollowed me through that process of my mental breakdown. So, because they were ashamed of me and they didn't know what was happening, and I understand that and, have compassion for them. But the trauma and the scars it left on me where I can't express anything. I can't even laugh without someone monitoring my experience of being like crazy. And then, the art, the to track back to the other painting I did, it was a girl like smoking a cigarette and just being like, fuck everything. And my therapist didn't want that one because she has kids and she felt really bad for rejecting it, but it's still up on my wall and it's one of my favorite paintings I've done to this day. And I'd love to, sell it to someone who it meant something to. But I ended up doing one that was like this girl's mind that had just exploded and there was just paint spatters all over her mind and her head was just facing up. And um that's called And Then My Mind Exploded because it did, that's what happened. That's what happens if we keep repressing and pressing, repressing and pressing, something's going to give eventually. And I did, so we did, that was therapy for me, even though we did a little bit of art therapy in the therapy room with, scribbling on things and paper, but the real therapy was me in my own time connecting to my creativity and exploring my inner world through art. And um, I I got so much healing from that. And not everyone's journey is as intense as mine. Like mine is a big like story of kind of repression and going down the wrong path and like being trying to be someone that you're not. And like it's not always that extreme or intense for other people, but um it's why I love, helping people who may be in a situation where they just want more creativity in their life, or there is a young part of them that always wanted, that had this dream of being someone, and being a creative outlet always fed a part of their soul, and they just shut it down. And it doesn't have to mean you have to go off and be an artist now, or like be a published author or anything, but that you get to feed this part of your soul that just wants to be seen and heard and witnessed, and given space and time and air to breathe in the world. And yeah, I continued painting on after that. I became a yoga teacher, and I've been teaching yoga for the last 3 years, and I've been hosting yoga and art retreats, and I'll always offer art at my retreats. And I've hosted art workshops independent of the yoga, and I still sell my art. I did a big Sinead O'Connor painting that is hangs in my old place of work in Monkstown in Cafe de Journal, and every now and again I'll release a drop of those paintings, which I sell on my website or donate to charity. And then I'm also in the middle of working towards my first ever exhibition, which is female nudes. Irish women have sent me their nudes and their nude photographs, and I'm painting them for them. And it's all about body image, body diversity, and self-acceptance, and also sexuality, which is something I love to talk about as well. The repression of female sexuality and the liberation of female sexuality in Ireland, which was a big part of my journey as well. But that's a podcast for another day. So yeah,
Oh my
that
God, Anna,
yeah.
I feel like listening to you. It's very healing, and I'm so grateful for how open you are in talking about everything. Because I think that for me sitting here listening, and I know for other people who can relate to things you're talking about, it's very healing to have words, because you not only are sharing your experience, you have so much self-awareness, as you talk about all of that, which obviously I know you've a bit of a background in psychology, and you also would be a very self-aware person, but it's just yeah, you've been through a lot, and something that's really stood out as you were talking was that sense of belonging, and nearly feeling like there's nowhere where you belong, and even the place that you want to belong, not being sure if you belong there either. And that's a really sad feeling. I think even though humans, there's a beauty in the solace of creating. We crave belonging and social connection as well. And to feel like, you're not worthy of being an artist or worthy of belonging in that space. I can completely relate to it. As you were talking earlier, I was like, oh my God, here's more common threads that me and Anna share. Because I was also used to make movies as a kid with my friends and cousins, and it was also when I went to secondary school, didn't know anyone, shut a lot of that creative side off. So just listening to you share and put words is just beautiful. But there's a sadness, that comes up inside of me listening to you share your story of like, oh, wanting you to go to that art college, wanting you to realize how amazing you are. But that's reflected back to me as well. And sometimes it's so easy when someone else is sharing to, see it in them or comfort them compared to when, we're alone with ourselves. And it sounds like you've been on a very lonely, journey as well, from having to shut yourself off from expressing who you are for years and having people leave your life when you did, or when you reach that breakdown point. And so would you say, I know you said your therapist, which is incredible, that like they were just so interested in your art, because I think I can relate to that feeling that sometimes all you want is for, recognition, or I don't know, to share your art with someone, because there's that question of like, is this good enough? Do I belong in this space? And so I know that you share online quite openly, and you would share your art online as well. And then also hearing about all the painting and your private poetry writing. It's clear that art is a big part of who you are, and not just art, but expressing yourself, and art is a medium to do that. Um, so yeah, I suppose it would be interesting to hear about what then led you to start sharing more openly with people outside of the therapy room. Because I know you said you're now selling artwork, which is incredible. Like, what an achievement. As you were talking about it, I was like, hold up, this is amazing. Like, coming from, hiding off and being that athletic person to then now openly, selling your own artwork, and just like, yeah, being proud of that. So I'd love to hear more just about what then helped you to start showing others, and also just expressing your emotions and talking as openly as you do now.
Yeah, thanks, Saoirse, for all those lovely, kind words and for validating my experience as well. That's always really nice. Um, I guess you hit the nail on the head with the loneliness, you know. I remember how lonely I felt for so many years and how isolated I felt. And it's not that I feel a responsibility to help other people not feel that way, but I kind of do. I just don't want other people to have to go what I went through. And I remember, looking at girls like older people or people that I was inspired by on Instagram who I would never have messaged or spoken to necessarily, but I know that some people are watching me who may never reach out that I am helping. And then I know that there's so many people that have reached out and told me that I'm helping them, you know? So I know that the work I'm doing is, it's I've got more comfortable with being open because, I lived like I was the picture perfect person in like secondary school. Like no one thought there was a single thing wrong with me. Like I looked perfect. I had an eating disorder that was never that bad in terms of weight loss that I was able to manage. So people like my parents didn't even know, and that was the most traumatic part, that they didn't see my pain ever. And I was so alone and I was so good at hiding. And as women, we wear masks so much more than men. And like some of us rebel out in different ways. But I think that it's like just this fear of like just never wanting to be unmasked. I just want to be unmasked, and like the relief, you're carrying such a heavy load when you're bottling everything in. And sometimes it's easier to just express yourself. Like it's so much easier. And like when you do that, like the people who are looking for you will find you. And I want to, I meet amazing people like you, Saoirse, and like my different friends now because of the way I live, and that people can see who I really am. And just by being open, you help people. And not everyone is comfortable with being open, and they have different, jobs and responsibilities. And like I sometimes fear maybe if I need to go back into some sort of different employment, like is my Instagram way too out there and things I say and speak about. But I don't think, there was a big period of me, breaking free from the mold that I was in. And I've kind of said all the things, and now I'm just trying to like build and like help other people. And I think getting tattoos also really, really helped me as a form of creative expression. They helped me. They're kind of, they were a ritual of me coming home to myself and like being um feeling like I belong in the world, because who I am is enough. And you like for the most part, people don't judge people with tattoos anymore, but like you can kind of I kind of immediately feel a sense of belonging when I see other people with tattoos or something, because it's like, oh, you know, we're a little bit neurodivergent, probably, and creative and expressive in ways. And I do feel a huge sense of belonging in the world now. Like even we were living down in Clare together. I was for the last 10 months, and I totally found my tribe down there. You know, there's so many people, and the biggest that's it's so healing for me being around, love and like friendship and connection, because for so many years I was without it. And it's almost like this weird feeling of remembering how it felt to be a child and be loved by people, and for who I really was, you know. So yeah, I don't know if I answered that question properly. Sorry.
No, you did. You did. And well, as you were saying there about even the tattoos, I just thought it was interesting because, let's say you could have, we talked about wearing masks and hiding, some of your thoughts and I like visualize all the creativity bubbling up inside you that you're not showing or letting out. But tattoos or dyeing your hair blue, it's like, or dressing up in different ways, it's a way to nearly show the world and have it on your skin because we
Yeah.
can't always see, what's going on. And maybe some creative people, they might not want to, be fully expressive and in social situations all the time. So it's like it also gives a way to express yourself through that, through your clothes, through your image, through all of that thing. And there's fun and play with that. And I guess, like when I'm thinking about this idea of seeing art, because it's a healing medium,
Hmm.
and I suppose what you're saying, what it was bringing up for me is there's times in my life where I've seen writing and creativity as more of an escape or more of something to turn to when I'm alone. And they're like that, it can bring up that loneliness sense of this is what I turn to express everything, versus times where you can also see it as something to play,
Mm.
something that you enjoy. And I'm wondering, because I know that we are talking about the artist debt a lot, and we have this shared love of Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way, and many other books. But that one in particular talks about how it's so important to like bring yourself on artist dates, to nourish your creative soul, to let yourself play, and like you said, feel like you're a child again, surrounding yourself with love. And not just creating for the having to make a product. So yeah, I'd love to hear more about your thoughts on this process, maybe how you navigate it with between artist dates, creating in a playful way versus maybe creating for like dealing with your emotions. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a tough one as well, like, creating to create a product, or creating for the love and the joy and the the release. Is that kind of the question you're like asking?
yeah. Well, I suppose that came up as well because I know that that's a big one when people say, "Oh, just write or paint for the love of it." But then there's also, I suppose, I was visualizing when you were a teen, maybe, and you said you might have written poetry, or it
Hmm.
felt like something that brought you to tears because you weren't
Hmm.
sure if you were good enough at it. That
Hmm.
I imagine there's a lot of wounding and pain linked as well to, and maybe I'm wrong to say that, but I suppose I'm wondering, was art always a playful experience for you? Did it bring play and joy, or is there also, yeah,
Pain
pain
attached.
linked
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, sorry. I needed clarity there. I thought I was going to go off on a different tangent altogether.
Whatever comes to
Yeah.
mind, just let it flow. That's part of the artistic
Yeah,
process too.
that's true. Yeah, I guess when I was in school, when I had that amazing art teacher, my art, like I produce some of my best work still to this day because I had, a certain amount of discipline. I was made to sit and focus, and, I was guided, and there was a framework, and there was, always themes we were working around. And I also, I guess I had a bit of an eating disorder to lean back on for kind of, I was super focused and just it was my release and it was my loneliness and it was I was, feeling my art is really weird from that time in my life. I'm like, how did no one notice? It's painting death and painting zombies, like everything, and some of my weirdest work, but then also super mystical and creative. And I always was drawn towards painting like similar themes. I was always drawn towards the mystical and like different things. But yeah, that was the last time. That's why I've always really sought a mentor as good as that teacher. And I wanted to go to art college. I'd applied to a master's in NCAD, but I needed my undergraduate to have been in fine art, and it wasn't. So they rejected me, and they said that was the reason, but I don't know. Maybe they said to apply to the undergraduate, and I just didn't want to do a 4 year undergraduate when I like dropped out of my when I'd already spent so long trying to get through college. And um I I really wanted someone to help me channel my creativity, because when I'm left to my own devices, it mainly draws towards the playful side. And I love the playful side, and maybe my inner child is so repressed. She needs more time to just play and color and scribble and like paint all the rainbows and fairies in the world. But then I also know that I do have good artistic ability. I've produced some good like pieces of work that I'm really proud of, and I can't do them to that same standard anymore because my inner critic has got really high, because they came at a point in my life I was processing pain, and they were just birthed out of me, like I didn't even try. And now I'm trying to do that level of focus and like precision in my art, and I just want to splash paint all over the canvas now. So it is causing me pain and it's causing me inner turmoil, because um, I want to, I call myself an artist. I want to still feel like I am and I'm able to produce good quality work, and um, not just the like I got really into fluid art for a while, which is pouring paint and it looks like marbly, just because I didn't want to sit with the negative emotions that was, chasing perfection in art. And I enjoyed that process way more. And I'm like trying to sit with, maybe it's just a matter of, going with the flow and doing the things that bring me joy. And then maybe eventually they'll bring me back to a place of, I'm ready to sit and stare head on at a canvas and like do like super skilled precision. Like portraits are the main thing that like they just require so much accuracy. And I don't, yeah, I'm a perfectionist in that sense the with the portraits, but I don't like being a perfectionist. I like being free, and the nudes are much easier. The female form is so natural, like it's such a like form of nature that like you do certain things, lumps and bumps, it's totally fine, and you can kind of work with the paint and the canvas. But yeah, it's still an ongoing struggle that I'm really trying to work with, and I'm reading Rick Rubin's book as well. Like, I think we both are on, the creative act, and like going with the flow is like the main thing, and like being in that the game. The goal is not to make art. The goal is to be in that place and that state that makes making art inevitable. And I love that, and like that's how I try to live my life. Is like, how am I in flow here, and how can I be more in alignment that this isn't an effort and it's just pouring out of me, because that's when you create your best work, I feel anyway. But yeah,
Yeah.
what about you?
Yeah, no, as you're talking, it's interesting, I guess. There's differences with painting and writing, but I think in any creative medium, what I was thinking there is when I am looking at a bigger project and making a product like novel writing or submitting to publishers or trying to make it a certain standard, there's like a block there and my inner critic does get louder versus, and then I nearly distract myself by writing like an essay for social media. So sometimes I wonder, or coming online and making a reel and
Yeah.
sharing my poems in a free, playful way. And I do wonder, I think sometimes it's like a way of me controlling and not controlling, but being free and taking back control of my own creativity. And because it can be really defeating getting a lot of rejection, and a big part of writing is also spamming, literary journals, agents, publishers. That's if you want to, and especially for like fiction and creative writing. So when you were talking about particular paint styles, that's what I was thinking. Whereas every morning, or not every, I don't want to say that, but a lot of mornings, I will free write or do some journaling, or sometimes just go with the flow. And I actually feel lighter in my body and like I'm connected with something bigger than me, when I'm doing things from a flow state versus a force state. But obviously, to get things done, you have to as well, stick to a certain structure if you do want to have a finished product of whether it's a book, whether it's a piece that you're working on, a painting. And I think that's finding that balance. And for me, and maybe you can relate to this, it's what's helped me is not putting pressure on one thing, but having a range of things, creative things, whether it's podcasting, whether it's
Mm,
I don't know, going out doing a random new activity, or traveling, or, writing, or just drawing for the fun of it, but not putting all the pressure on one thing. I think that's when I get stuck. Whereas if I'm having a range of different creative projects and bits flowing, I think it makes me move through it easier and not attach my sense of self or my self-worth off of one piece. I don't know if you
hmm.
can relate to that.
Yeah, yeah, massively. I think I firstly have noticed that, my inner child isn't really that repressed anymore. It's actually that I don't really like being an adult and I need to get better at, that structure and discipline. And,
I know.
you're not going to finish this project if you don't sit down and do it. And like the only one that's holding you accountable is you. So that means like if you don't do it, no one else cares, but you're just not going to get this thing done that you want to do. So yeah, I relate to that. Like sometimes you do just have to like sit down and do it. And I have so many different projects on the go all the time because I don't know if I have ADHD or not. I don't think I do. I think I have enough labels on me for like a
That's one that
lifetime.
I've been
Yeah.
putting on myself
Yeah.
recently, if that helps.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
But I just love the variety. I love variety. Like that's why, I like it's nice blending yoga and art and then, the different work that I do with the Sisterhood Collective and then working on my retreats. And I'm trying to write my book, but that talk about needing to be the adult I am, that is causing me a lot of writer's block and mainly sitting down to do the thing. But yeah, I
but when
love
you
I
sorry, when you list it all out, though, it's like, geez, you're doing so much too that, sometimes you don't see that. And it's that thing as well. Sometimes I have to say, okay, if my attention is scattered to all these things, it might help. But there does sometimes come a point where you might need to focus in on a few things, or give yourself a bit of credit of like, I can't do everything at once, or it takes more time.
yeah.
And I don't know, can you relate to that, putting that pressure and sense of urgency on yourself?
Yeah, definitely. Like urgency is like sometimes we need a bit of urgency to get things done and a bit of healthy stress to like get things moving and things can really stagnate if there's no time pressure or deadline or things but too much urgency. I think I read something recently that like if we're constantly in a state of urgency, it just signals to our body that where we are is not safe and not okay and like sometimes it's not. Sometimes you really need to get your shit together. But I think it's definitely important to like pause and reflect and just feel gratitude and awe for where you are and how far you've come and like pinch yourself that this is like what your younger self will be so proud of that you're here today doing this and that um like you may not be anywhere near where you want to be, but like you're in a pretty good place after all.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
And I
um,
think it's hard to create too when you're in that sense of sometimes, not always. I don't want to say that, because like you said, some of things have flown out of me during my most traumatic periods in life. I just go to a page and write a poem and
yeah,
I'm like, Jesus Christ, who wrote that? But it's
yeah,
putting words to what I'm feeling. So in one way, but that's not urgency. Sometimes that's feeling the depths of your emotion.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when you're tuning into those emotions, you can nearly connect more, put it on a page. But also when you're feeling lighthearted and like there's a sense of freedom and play and joy, beautiful things can happen, whether in community or on a page or, just ideas. I find I can brainstorm more when I'm, with people who are also giving this creative buzz and energy. And I know that we are in the midst of getting ready for a creative retreat in Clare. So I guess to tie it back to the artist date, because that's what our retreat is called, and something that we're passionate about is creating, but also taking time out to yourself to do that, to take yourself on dates. How important has artist dates been for you?
So important. It really, Julia Cameron's book, the one we're referencing, The Artist's Way, it really opened up my world. And I bought it around the time that I went back to therapy and was working with that therapist. So I was working with that book as well at that time in my life. And the artist state, like anyone who has, like, it's a myth and a lie that some people just aren't creative. Like everyone is creative. Some of us just, that's like saying that, I can't do maths. Like everyone, we're trained and taught with the whip how to do maths, like from a young age. Like if we were all channeled in creativity, of course they're going to look different. And like by a conventional standard, some might be better, but the beauty is in the eye of the beholder and everything. And like, it's a unique expression of your soul. Like that's just so cool to look at on a page. So I don't want to yeah, leave it think I'm speaking only to a certain person when I'm saying the artist state. It encompasses everyone that's ever thought about, being a little bit more creative, or wanting to introduce a bit more creativity into their lives. The artist state is something I started doing a lot around that time, and now it's just become such an ingrained part of my life. Like I'll bring myself on dates now to just feed my cup of inspiration and fill this well that needs attention. Like you need to be inspired in order to be a creative, and you need that, like, needs to fuel and feed your life. So the artist date, going once a week somewhere that like inspires you, just for you for a few hours, that you get an injection of inspiration, even if it's just time out in nature. And when we come to go and create intentional time and spaces, that's when like a lot of ideas can drop in, and things can reveal themselves from our subconscious and different things. So yeah, I don't like specifically say I'm going on an artist date anymore, but like it's just I did for a period of time, and I found that really helpful. And now I just know that that's what I'm doing, because I need, like, if I stop feeling inspired, I get depressed. Like I need to feel inspired by life, and that's like one of my biggest needs in life. And I think it's really important for us all to have like that sense of inspiration. And yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Anna. And like I'm thinking, even when I got the artist's way, I was laughing there because it was my therapist who gave it to me. So I know you said you
Oh
got it when you were
yeah,
in
I
therapy.
forgot. Yeah.
So once again, it's just funny, these things coming to us at a similar time.
Yeah.
But whenever I got the book, my therapist gave it, and it was at a time where I was burnt out. I was felt I was focusing on everyone but myself. And I was like, why am I so overwhelmed all the time? Why am I feeling, stressed and unhappy? And then I, like, just from taking that time out each week that you spoke about, I felt like, I could cry from happiness. I just felt like I could breathe again, and I felt more me. And it even
Hmm.
started with just taking 20 minutes in the morning to sit and read a book. I was like, oh my God, I haven't read a book in so long. That's something I do all the time now, and I felt like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm allowed to do this. What? And
Hmm.
I can do this. And I think for me, there is a guilt around being selfish, and taking time out. I'd be going to coffee shops and then I'd put a picture on Instagram and friends would be like, "Who are you with? Where are you? I'll come meet you." And I was like, "No, I'm actually just taking time out to myself." They'd be like, "What do you mean? Like,
Yeah.
what do you do?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm literally just like sitting here, people watching, writing in my journal, like having." And then I stopped, putting pictures up because I was like, yeah, I just was feeling weird for doing that.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
when you're in your like early 20s,
Hmm.
that's different as well. But I think what stood out for me with that book was like not feeling selfish for needing time to yourself, for saying no to people, for just taking time out to connect with your inner child, doing things like watching a movie, going to the cinema, taking time out to yourself, because it was saying as artists, that's like what we need, to
Hmm.
breathe. And probably as humans too. As you said, we,
Yeah,
we all
totally.
have creativity in us. And from working with kids, I see that they're like the most creative people I know without even trying.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I don't know, can you relate to that feeling of like as you're starting to get into this or as you started to take time out to yourself, thinking, am I being selfish? Is this weird? Versus now, where, like you said, it just comes, it's a part of your life.
Well, I guess like I always was hyper independent and quite a lonely person. Like it wasn't really the case for me. I had a lot of time always to myself, and that was how I process. It's kind of the opposite. It's more like letting people into my life now these days. Like I need so much alone time, and it's part of the reason I moved back to Dublin, from Clare. I was just really overstimulated, and I needed to kind of focus on myself. And I like I didn't find that for me really, because I lived my trauma response like was isolation. I completely isolated myself. And I think that like people that like a coach once told me that, you might not necessarily be an introvert. You might just be like playing out a trauma response where you're isolating yourself. And then I was like,
Wow.
oh my God. And I realized that yeah, I'm actually not that much of an introvert. Like I definitely need my own time. And I think those labels like introvert and extrovert are another label that we just need to like let go of and get rid of. Like it depends who I'm around. If I'm around people I feel super safe and warm with, I'm super chatty and bubbly. But put me back in that environment like 10 years ago when I was in school, I'll like be mute and like tremble in the corner and just want to like leave. And
Yeah.
then I'll feel like I'm an introvert. And like it just depends. But I do know that I recharge a lot of my batteries alone and solo. And sometimes people don't understand that I do need personal time and space, and that I need more alone time than the average person. And that's definitely comes from being creative. I think I just need like I think that's like a well-known thing. Like creatives like need large amounts of time alone. And yeah,
Yeah.
maybe people getting offended by it is something in my life I have had to sit with. Like it's not that I just don't have the energy and I can't join or can't come. But yeah, not because I'm off doing things by myself a lot of the time, and I love doing
Yeah.
that. But yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny as you were talking there, I was like, oh, I feel like um it was nearly the opposite when you said your trauma response was isolating, which, I also was probably very hyper independent throughout life, but I felt like a trauma response for me was nearly people pleasing and
Mm,
overworking, that it was
wow.
realizing
Yeah.
like I'm surrounded by people but craving alone time, but not giving myself that. And it
Wow.
was like once I had permission of like, oh, people can still love you when you're not around them or when you take
Yeah.
that time to yourself. It was like, I can take periods to myself. And now like that, I feel like I need lots of downtime and spend a lot of time alone, but I also need social connection, belonging, love. And it, like what you said, sometimes these labels, they might not always help because, it's not like we're all one or the other, but it's
Hmm.
kind of just learning to navigate, I guess, our own like needs and tolerances and lots of rest, and also it depends on the people you're around, as you said, and how you feel. But I think for
Yeah.
me, over the last few years, it's been navigating that whole journey, and also, yeah, also just feeling like, oh, I can take time to create and to myself, and that's part of who I am, and expressing that to the people I
Hmm.
love and letting them get to know me more.
Hmm.
Because we're not really, if we're keeping masks up, we're not giving it people a chance to know us, and we're not giving ourselves a chance to really connect. So I guess I was
No.
isolating in a way too, because it's
Yeah.
like just
Yeah.
keeping everything hidden until you're like behind closed doors or writing on a page.
Yeah.
Whereas actually being yourself can feel scary, I'm sure, at times for a lot of people, taking the masks off, whether creative or not. And I think a lot of people might not even know they're wearing masks, but
Yeah, that's for sure.
like looking at our retreat, I suppose for anyone who's thinking, maybe I'll come, I don't really know, I'm not sure, I can relate or I can't relate, but maybe we should chat a bit more about what our intentions are, yeah, and what, we would hope people get out of it.
Yeah. Um, I'm so excited to bring this retreat to life. It's the 17th of August, in the Burn, and we are putting our two hearts together, I think, really for the day to like bring our passions to life and share them, the healing modalities that is creativity and expression to others and give you access to parts of yourself, perhaps dormant parts of yourself, new parts of yourself, and discover through creativity because creativity is discovery. You know, what you're about to create doesn't exist yet. And that's the exciting part and the magic of it all. And the day itself is, we're doing a day retreat. So we have such a nice day planned for you all from 10 a.m. We arrive, we sit in circle, we do some cacao, some breath work, and um, dance. And then we move on to some work with Saoirse. I don't know if you want to take over,
Yeah, I was thinking
Saoirse.
I'm letting you
Yeah, yeah,
explain the
yeah,
whole thing here as if I'm not going to be there.
yeah.
Yeah, so we'll be doing some poetry, and I love hearing how you also, even though poetry seems to be a private thing, I think a lot of people can connect with that because it is so vulnerable. So we are going to talk a bit about that. We're going to do poetry writing, we're going to read poetry, have a chance to express our own, and also just create in a playful way. Because I know it can be very vulnerable, especially if you've never like shared anything before. But just knowing that everyone in the space is like there to celebrate each other for showing up and for giving it a go rather than creating for the sake of performance. Yeah, and then we're also, because it's surrounded like by the burn, we're surrounded by nature. We're going to walk outside. We're going to connect with the land. So I'm very excited for that. And yeah, outside of that, I think, oh yeah, and we'll be doing some of your art, yeah, and
Yeah,
yeah, that'll be. Oh, and also dressing up for the day. That's another
yeah,
thing. So as we were talking about earlier, how tattoos and outfits and just, yeah, I suppose what you choose to express on the outside can also be a form of creativity. We're inviting people to come in an outfit that I suppose they like or that brings them joy or that celebrates them in some way.
yeah,
And yeah, that just to get really like in touch with our inner child.
yeah, yeah. We're so excited. It'll be
Yay.
magical.
Yeah. No, and is there anything else that you would like to say on that in relation to if someone was on the fence about coming?
Just that, you only regret the chances you don't take. You're like one choice away from, sitting with like-minded people that are all doing something like maybe outside of their comfort zone. They're all exploring and discovering, and you never know the connections you could meet first of all. And you could have the chance to create like a lasting impact and impression on your life. You could open a door to a new part of yourself that you want to explore more, and it could be the beginning of something of like a new self-discovery journey of your creativity that you're about to unlock or just recharge. And um I can guarantee that you won't regret coming. That's for
Oh, that's
sure.
so
Yeah.
beautiful. And, it's so true. And I think we don't know unless we try. And connection as well, even though we're talking about all the things we're doing, connection
Yeah.
and being in a space with people who are there for the same reason. I just think that is such a beautiful feeling and that's worth it in itself. So yeah, thank you for sharing all of that, Anna. Before we finish up, I always ask people on the podcast, I'm realizing I didn't even tell you this. I ask people just a couple of questions at the end. So do you mind if I ask you what is a fear that you have overcome?
Ooh, on the ball. Maybe fear of being myself, on the theme of what we've been talking about today.
Yeah.
And the fear of doing like being that girl that like with blue hair and NCAD that I was so afraid of, going there and meeting that fear that I faced and those uncomfortable emotions that were being triggered within me and exploring them and exploring my shame and explore sitting with my shame and my fear and the fear of being rejected by everyone I love for being myself. And some people do reject you and that's okay, but they're not for you. And you draw in even better people that are more aligned for you. And yeah, yeah, that's definitely probably
Yay. Yeah. Oh, thank you. And the next one, what is your biggest fear?
my biggest fear. Um, I have a really big fear of like having to go back into the matrix and work in a corporate job that I hate. I don't know if it's my biggest fear. It's something that I like think about a lot, but obviously big fear, losing loved ones and um, that is like probably the biggest fear, but that's inevitably going to happen. And yeah, the fear of, having to go back into the box that I tried so hard to break out of, that I'd have to go back into a mold and try like have to like go back to who I was when I was in school or be that person or that's a big fear that like certain environments really trigger me like you know elitist corporate settings. I feel like my trauma response is to try and be that old version of me again, and I can't like that's when I struggle to be myself and unmask and let myself just be. Maybe if I do need to lean on my degree at some point in my life, I don't have to like be that version anymore. I can just be who I am, who's doing this job for a little while, and it's not this big traumatic thing.
Wow, thank you so much for your honesty. And I think, a lot of people will connect with that and relate to it. And once again, you're putting words to fears people might not even know that's, driving their life too. And I think just having an awareness is always the biggest thing, like that you're aware of how those settings make you feel and that you ideally would not want to be in them again.
Yeah, you never know.
Um, yeah, thank you, Anna. And the last question is, do you have any silly fears or fears that seem a bit more irrational? Some people have specific fears of random things, so even
I'm
though no
really,
fear is
I'm,
silly.
I'm really afraid of seals. I'm really afraid of mice and rats, and yeah, things
Why
like
seals?
um, they just they scare me so much. Like if I'm swimming near, like swimming in the sea, and then someone said seal, like I'd feel like And I swam with a dolphin in Clare recently. He was like literally like less than a meter away from me, and I had got snorkels on, and he swam that close to me, and I nearly drowned my friend, like just because I was so scared and I was clinging off them, and I was just
Oh,
like so
wow.
freaked out. Like sea creatures are so cool, but that one really caught me off guard. Just swam right by me, and I think I would have been more scared if it was a seal because they just scare me. They're freaky.
Are you scared of seeing a picture of them?
No.
It's not a picture, but it's my seal teddy. You know, I became
That's
obsessed
so
with
funny.
seals like a year ago. So it's so funny when you said that. I kept pulling astrology cards with pictures of seals on them. So
No
then,
way.
and I kept talking about them and how they were like my good luck sign. And then my friend posted me this when I was
That's
in
so
Australia.
funny.
So it's
Oh
a
my
big
God.
blob of a seal. So I don't know if this will help you in any way with your slowly easing you into the like trauma recovery from
Yeah.
seals. I don't know if it looks like a seal, but it's more like a big
So
air
I
puffy
can't
thing.
believe you just had that right beside you.
I
Literally.
know. That's why I was like, what?
It's
But
another
look,
synchronicity anyway.
it
Seals are your
is.
spirit animal. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, actually, recently I've been saying I think birds are my spirit animal, but I used to be terrified of them. And
Hmm.
now I'm very comfortable. I don't know if I'm comfortable, but I love their freedom. So I
Hmm.
often think, am I just scared of something that they have that I want?
Hmm.
Or anyway, can go into a whole psychoanalysis of that another day. But look, thank you so much for coming on today, Anna, and for sharing your story. It's been so beautiful just even getting to learn more about you.
Oh, thank you so much, Saoirse. Thank you for having me on, and thank you so much for everything that you do and all you're equally as open with everything, and it's so inspiring, that we're cheering each other on from the sidelines and like helping and creating everything together that we are. Thank you for having me on, and thank you for
Amazing.
seeing me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.